Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video. Throwaway for obvious reasons. I met my fiance, Chris, at a local pub when I was 18. We instantly hit it off and started going out after about 6 months of going on dates. I'd be lying if, aside from this and a couple of other instances, our relationship wasn't amazing. It was my first one and the most beautiful one I had been in. I was head over heels for this man, and so far, I imagined him to feel the same way. I mean, why else would he fly out to a European country to propose to me? Nothing makes sense to me currently, and is the reason why I'm here because asking advice to my near and dear ones just doesn't seem helpful. It all started when he proposed to me. It was a beautiful moment. It's like it's still sort of engraved in my mind. And I thought this would be the moment that embarked a new journey to our love, making it stronger, bringing us closer. But man, was I wrong. It was the very next month of our engagement itself that I started wedding planning. After communicating with him, of course. I started looking for wedding vendors, looking for wedding dresses, choosing my bridesmaids and maid of honor, picking out the wedding destination, and all the like. I was so ready to have my dream Pinterest wedding, and with the support and enthusiasm shown by both my side of the family and his. I thought I was set to have a beautiful wedding, but how would I if the groom himself wasn't ready for it? I slowly started to realize that as Chris began distancing himself from me. Initially, with the enthusiasm of the wedding, I thought it was just him busy with his work. And that's what he told me as well, every time I would try to sit down with him and talk about anything wedding related. After months of avoidance and resistance from him, I caught up to his lack of communication and finally sat him down to talk. This was our very first argument. I still vividly remember how much he yelled at me for being so excited for the wedding, how I was the one who only had to do the planning when he was the one who had to do the earning, even though that simply wasn't true and I earned as well. I fell for his harsh words as it was the first time he was using them towards me, and this embarked the beginning of a very manipulative, toxic, and just plain sad dynamic between us where I would either be too sad or too scared to tell him anything or just leash out and argue with him, resulting into nothing. Toxic and just plain sad dynamic between us where I would either be too sad or too scared to tell him anything or just lash out and argue with him, resulting into nothing. Things went about this way. He kept getting distant with me, and I tried doing everything possible in my hands to bring him closer to me, being obedient, gentle, to being angry and enraged. I tried my very best, expressing all that I possibly could to get it through to him that I wanted to work through this all. But all I received from him back were empty promises that he would just fulfill half of. I still continued to keep going because I thought 1 year just wouldn't change everything all of a sudden, right? I thought my love for him was so strong that if I could spend 5 years with him in happiness, then I could definitely spend 5 years with him in sadness and misery, just hoping every day that he would love me the way he did, hoping that everything that held him back in life would be over with for once. That is how I had been spending the last 1.5 years of our relationship, still planning for the wedding with our families who had been living in different states, having absolutely no idea as for what had been going on, all looking forward to celebrating our wedding, which will be held after another year. That is when Chris's eyes opened too. I guess because when it was exactly 1 year to go for our wedding, he sat me down. He wanted to talk to me about our future. For the first time in a while, this man had been so gentle and sweet to me, and for a moment I thought this was it. I have him back to me. But nope, this was just the beginning of it all. He started off by expressing his love for me, how the reason he had been holding back all this time to show it was because of a specific reason. I had gotten extremely curious the moment he said that, and my attention was fully at him. When he said it, I was so shocked that it took me a whole moment to comprehend it. This man just told me that his parents, who showed excitement every time I spoke to them about our wedding, didn't really like me for the way I was and wanted him to call off the wedding. Hearing that was like my heart had dropped into my stomach. I so very desperately wanted him to say that he fought for us, but he didn't. He didn't say anything after that, actually. The room filled with dead silence, and I was too tired to say anything, so I just left. It's only been a month since everything happened. He's moved out of our shared apartment since, and I don't really know where he lives currently. It's still hard for me to accept everything. I still find myself questioning my worth. Why wasn't I enough for his parents, for him? That's how I had been spending another day in life without him. Shopping at the supermarket when I came across his dad. I immediately became super nervous, unsure as to what to do, and just as I was thinking about what course of action to take, he approached me himself. I was shocked because the tone of his greeting was sweet, but just a bit disappointing. We exchanged greetings, and I asked him what he was doing here. He simply said that he and his wife were here to comfort Chris since he's been devastated since everything went down. I guess he saw the look on my face too. I looked like I did every other day, exhausted and done. He commented on that. You look very tired, and that's unusual for you. I just wished you didn't do what you did, and just left. Right as I had the time to respond, he just didn't wait. I didn't say anything either, but it's not like I haven't thought about everything he had been saying ever since it happened. I've asked my friends and family for advice over it ever since. I feel like something really different is going on than I was led to believe. Should I contact his family? What should I do here? WIBTA? I decided to muster up the courage and message his dad on Facebook. I honestly didn't expect a response because his Facebook was very much inactive. So I thought I should message his siblings and was shocked to find out that literally 2 out of his 3 siblings had blocked me. Not just on Facebook, though, but on Instagram too. Alarm bells started ringing in my mind, and that too very loudly because I just knew something very wrong had happened. So I chose the very last option I had, messaging the sibling who hadn't blocked me. Let's call him Evan. He had a semi active account, and honestly, I was pretty surprised to see him reply to me so quickly. He seemed hesitant to speak to me at first, as if he knew he'd get in trouble if he did. But after sending him paragraphs upon paragraphs explaining my side of the story, he agreed on having a meeting with me. I'm nervous, yet calm at the same time. The only reason why I'm going is for the closure and the need to seek out for the truth. I met Evan today, and phew, I really did dodge a bullet by not marrying this man. Apparently, Evan had told everyone that I had been cheating on him, and as a result, we had broken up. I was dumbfounded on hearing this. I explained to Evan and another one of his siblings who he had brought along with him everything. I even showed him the last couple of texts I shared with Chris. The day he moved out of the apartment, I had messaged him a paragraph thanking him for everything, where I also mentioned a couple of lines about his parents, telling him how I wished I was enough for them. I told him how Chris tried so very hard to come off as a good son to me, because that's what his response said. His last response to me was that he, too, wished that his parents understood and accepted me as their daughter in law. Evan and his sibling present there were shocked at this discovery, explaining to me their side of the story, how Chris all this time had been trying to show that he's all heartbroken, but is moving on by dating his work colleague, Melissa. My heart broke once again, all over again, because it all clicked to me and made sense. Melissa and Chris, their close bond. This was all an act put up by him to blind me and his family and escape our relationship. As I was crying after coming to this realization, it didn't take the two siblings to put two and two together as well. And oh boy, were they enraged at Chris. They immediately apologized to me on his behalf and left, telling me that they had a lot to deal with. I totally understood what they meant by that. It's been 6 months since I last updated. I have since picked up a job a couple of cities away for a change. Feeling amazing would be an understatement. I feel fresh and younger than ever. Results of not letting a man child not control your life. Am I right? I have made new friends, rekindled with old ones, and have even started seeing new people. I feel like a new person after pushing myself out of the misery Chris had pushed me into. All thanks to you guys and therapy. If it weren't for you all, I truly would still be mourning the breakup and questioning my worth. But it is because of everyone who offered me such immense support. I feel like I have turned my life completely upside down. As for Chris, though, things don't really seem the same. The very next day after meeting his siblings, his parents came over to my place to apologize to me over everything. This was completely unexpected and honestly unnecessary because it wasn't their fault at all. Honestly, after that, what they did was necessary, not just for my sake, but for their sake too. They kicked him out of the house, and as word spread, he got a lot of crap from his friends too. They were the ones who also told me that Melissa eventually got bored of him and left him for a higher up from the same company that the two worked in. I think he got the karma he well deserved, and I got to start a new chapter in my life, making me realize that all things, after all, happen for a reason. NTA, you have all the right to confront Chris or his family after what his dad said. You deserve closure for the situation, especially if Chris is spreading such lies about you. NTA, Chris is disgusting and a coward if he needs you to hide the fact that he's a cheat. Good on his family for siding with you. I, 41 male, have been married to Jane, 37, for about 10 years now, and we both have two kids from previous relationships. I have Tim, 19 male, and Harry, 14 male, while she has Eve, 18 female, and Matt, 14 male. About half a year ago, my father died and left us his house to us, which we moved into, selling our old house. When we moved in, Jane began asking that I put her name on the house as well, which I refused since before we got married we agreed to have separate finances. Jane didn't like this and started acting out at home, not helping out, leaving the house for hours at a time, and not responding to my texts and calls. When I asked her why she's doing this, she said it's not her house, so she shouldn't have to help out. This didn't help my relationship with her daughter, who's never really liked me, in contrast to her brother, who adores me and is best friends with Harry. She often shouts that I'm not her dad, so I should leave her alone, which is hurtful, but I just let it go. But it got to the point that one day, Jane, Eve, and myself got into an argument, and out of spite, I wrote Eve out of my will. If she wasn't going to see me as a father, then she wasn't entitled to my money. A few weeks ago, Eve had a festival and asked to use my car to go. I told her no, as I'd have to take the car to work. She said why I didn't just take Uber, and I said that I had all my students' assignments and other materials in my car, so it's like a convenient storage. She went in a mood and went to her room. Come the day before the festival, and I wake up to go to work, and my car isn't there. I had to call in sick to work and called everyone to find out where my car had went. I call the police to report a stolen vehicle, and a few hours later, I get an angry call from Jane shouting at me for getting Eve arrested. It turns out that Eve and her friends broke into my car the night before and took it so they could go to the festival. When they got home from the station, they went off on me and started accusing me of hating Eve and wanting her to suffer in jail. I just went to sleep because I was already too stressed out for the day. Come the next morning, I find out that Jane had gone through my folders and seen my will and told Eve. Eve smashed her brother Matt's gaming PC that I had bought for him, saying that he doesn't deserve anything from that monster. When I found out, I was livid. Her mother tried to defend her, and I wasn't having any of it, and I just ended up kicking Eve out of my house. Jane shouted at me, saying how could I do that to her and that I'm a selfish monster. I didn't care. I just let her talk while Eve packed her things. Jane has been sleeping in Eve's rooms now. She goes to work, orders takeaway for herself, and just stays in the room. I sometimes overhear her talking trash about me on the phone. Eve has been staying with her aunt on the other side of the city. I feel bad since I just wanted to give the kids a real family, and now I've just gone and ruined it for them. So am I the a-hole? Our previous house was owned solely by me, and we used the money from the sale as funding for all the kids' college expenses. The new house was inherited by me only, and not both me and Jane. Eve has, since me and her mother started dating, been hostile towards me, and the aggression has only increased once we moved into the new house. NTA, but Eve isn't the main issue. Your wife is. Provided that you split the money from the house you two had before you moved into your father's house, there's no real issue there, since you already had separate finances. Jane's response was immature and gave Eve tacit permission to act out. Then she egged her on more by sharing your will. Eve stole your car. You had every right to call the police. She also destroyed her brother's PC out of spite. Family therapy if you want to save this sunken ship. You're also not blameless, as it's awfully petty to write someone out of your will out of spite rather than try to work on the relationship. NTA for kicking her out, but you have a wife problem, not a stepdaughter problem. Your wife's name wasn't on the old place, so it makes sense it isn't on the new one. But this is something that needed to be ironed out, because no one likes to feel that the home they are living in isn't theirs, or if they would be out on the street with no recourse should you separate. But all of that is kind of unimportant because I don't see how you come back from this. So I work for a materials company. To not get too specific, our company's research involves synthesis and characterization of materials containing transition metals from a micromolar to large scale. The company is currently looking for a research scientist. The requirements for a job, PhD in relevant area of study or MSc with some industry experience or a bachelor's with a ton of experience. It is not an entry-level job. I made a comment on social media about my company looking for someone to fill this role. A friend, Stella, reached out to me to ask about the job. She specifically asked me to recommend her to my boss for the position. I was surprised. Unfortunately, Stella would not qualify even if it was an entry-level position. I told Stella that, sadly, she doesn't have the credentials. My company would not even consider her. I tried to put it nicely. She got upset and told me that because she's a hairstylist, she understands chemistry fully. We went back and forth multiple times. I was always polite, just stating that unfortunately she does not have the credentials for this job, and I could not recommend her. She said I was being unreasonable. I then explained to her because she would not quit, this job includes duties such as characterization via electron diffraction and X-ray diffraction techniques, as well as synthesis of materials, not only to perform them, but to understand them. And to understand these concepts, one would have to at least know about chemical states, chemical equilibria, acid and base, redox reactions, chemical kinetics, atomic bonding, some quantum chemistry, stuff that is somewhat covered in undergraduate chemistry. This is not an easy role. She admitted she didn't take chemistry of that level, but it doesn't matter because she could pick it up during training. I don't know how one could pick up a PhD's worth of knowledge during 2 months of training, but I'll let my colleagues know their education was for nothing. I'm sorry, but I would not be taken seriously at my job anymore if I recommended her. I told her she is free to apply herself and explain her knowledge to HR, but I will not be sending in my personal recommendation for her. I wouldn't expect her to recommend me to her salon as an expert hairstylist without any experience, just because I can cut paper with scissors. So I don't know why she wants me to recommend her to a job that requires credentials she doesn't have. She is now calling me an ass, and has been for the past 1.5 weeks, stating I am disrespectful to hairstylists. I don't think that's the case, but AITA? TA. Stella, however, is providing a spectacular example of a-holery. Do you have any mutual friends who will defend you so she might get an inkling how ridiculous she's being? If she persists, block her on social media and drop her as a friend. Anyone that pig-headed is not good friend